So you just needed to say, I'm asking for a friend, like was earlier, So, Bert, go ahead, Bert. You're muted. So you
Muted.
needed to say, okay, we are live.
Oh, I don't know if you want this part recorded, but I appreciate Bev's asking something because we all have been in odd situations. So her question can apply to some of us in certain situations. I have a different problem. Somebody
No,
might
no,
have,
you have a friend that has the
I have a
problem.
friend who has this unique problem.
Yeah.
When on Google, now when I open mail for Google, I always get something called Google Work, and I cannot get rid of it. I stepped out of the room for a moment. I think you said something about um, hold Safari and hold the Shift key. Would that help get rid of that?
Well, does it seem nefarious or is it from Google, do you think?
It's Google. Well, when I have Safari, then it always pops
No,
up.
but Google is it's something from Google is popping up.
Yes.
Well, sometimes you can't prevent that, but my recommendation would be you don't have to do it now, but quit Safari completely.
Okay.
Hold the shift key down when you click on Safari on the dock and see if it persists. If it still persists, shut Safari down, restart the computer, and then when you come back and try it. The other thing is it might be part of your homepage, and it could be something legitimately pops up because a lot of times, and I wish we could get it so it doesn't happen, but it says, "Oh, do you want to go to this website using your Google account?" And that's legitimate, but it sucks, and you can't get rid of it.
Right. And I never use Google Work. I
Well,
don't.
yeah, Google Work maybe. That sounds like it might be something nefarious because there's Google Workspace, but I don't think that's it. So
Popped up. I ignore
now
that.
the other thing is do you have malware bytes on your computer?
No, I don't.
Okay. So malware bytes is a free, we never get malware, but you can get adware. So if it persists and you can't get rid of it, you should go to malwarebytes.com and Al will be providing a link to malwarebytes.com and just say you're personal and it's going to sign you up for premium. Immediately go in and disable premium so you're not going to be charged. You don't have to do a credit card or anything. And then you only run it, you don't let it run all the time, you just let it run occasionally. So
And and what is the cost for that? Is it an app?
it's free. No, yeah, it's an app on your Mac.
Okay.
Does
But
this happen on your Mac or on your phone or your
my MacBook Pro.
Yeah, so it's an app on your Mac that you download and run.
Okay. And is it we order premium or just one time?
No, it's going to automatically turn on premium for 14 days, but immediately go up into settings and say end free trial and do
Oh,
that because otherwise it's going to bug you and you don't want to run it all the time. So Al, like I suspected, has provided a link in the chat. And those
huh?
are all going to be sent to you after the fact. So,
All right. Thanks. Okay.
okay. Before we get to Al's wonderful links and news and everything else, member announcements. Do we have any volunteer or member announcements beside me? I have one announcement. Anybody? Okay. Um, there's been some talk and some interest in a special interest group as a sideline for I want to say Teslas, it'll apply to some EVs too, but predominantly Teslas. And Lisa had asked about it and stuff. So what I would say is, um, if it's of interest, it would be strictly Zoom in the beginning, and if people that want to do it farther, because there's a lot of different things that like I have somebody who has had their car for like 4 years and they're afraid to take road trips with it, and it's like, my God, I've in 5.5 years I've done 250,000 miles and five over 4,000 mile road trips. So it's just it's called range anxiety. So it would be something, and I'm just thinking that we would do it on we pick a convenient time and we would do a Zoom. So if we want, I'm trying to figure out how we can do the email. Actually, Bob, would it be if we got the MacNexus info email? Would that be one where if they just put EV and then you could forward it, or is that a hassle?
Yeah, I already do that for service for Cindy on uh, the Wits group. So
All right, so if you want, you can go to, and it's the basically the number that gets out sent out on the flyer, or go to the MacNexus. It's MacNexus info at gmail.com, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah. So just put in the subject, just put EV, and then Bob will get it to me and I'll communicate and we'll figure out when we can have a Zoom for that, and just to kind of get it started. And if people want to get involved, they can. And it's a technology thing, and I think it's very helpful and very useful. So the best tool I use is one called a Better Route Planner, and it does it for every EV that's out there. So it's wonderful. So any
That's
questions on that?
MacNexus info at gmail.com.
correct.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Special interest group.
Yeah. So, and Bev put in here, I'm in for the Tesla/EV group. So yeah, if you guys can do that, because that way I'll collect it and I'll just do a group email to everybody, and feel free to spread it. It doesn't have to be MacNexus members initially, but maybe if we, it's not an Apple thing. So and Lisa is the one that kind of headed this up, but I think it'd be great. So and it could turn out to be social things where you go out. I mean, there's some clubs out here that do it. And I will provide information too, because there is a Sacramento EV group that is fairly active and they're really good. So, and just looking around here, we have quite a few EV owners in this, and it's getting more and more all the time. So, all righty. So, Al, if you're ready, I don't have to bring up the keynote because that was just pretty much everything. You're going to do your thing, and then I'm going to just talk about Time Machine and things like that, and then talk about photos and Insta360. So
Sounds
if you are ready, sir, you can share your perfect. I can't tell you guys, I know Al spends a lot of time on this, and it is just so useful. Not only this news and events and stuff, but he puts all these links together, and then that comes out to you. And I tell you, that is just so nice. Thank you, Al. Take it away.
All righty. Well, good evening, everyone. This is your monthly Apple Tech News segment here. This month, first up, after a few rounds of developer betas, Apple's brought out its first public betas for iOS 18, iPad OS 18, tvOS 18, watchOS 11, and macOS Sequoia. Public betas are considered to be beta builds that are somewhat safer for consumers to try out than developer betas. Features that exist in the public betas have usually been tried out and confirmed to be working properly in the developer betas for a while. No guarantees, but by definition, beta is a beta.
And that being said, I sometimes live on the bleeding edge, but I will never, ever do betas on a mission critical device. In other words, if it's your only Mac or your only iPad or your only iPhone, just there's no sense. I mean, you might as well just go put bamboo shoots under your fingernails, because it could get ugly, and you don't impose that on yourself.
Well, if you're in a Trepid soul and have an extra iOS or iPadOS device, 9 to 5 Mac has a primer to get you up and running. like last year, it's super simple to install the software thanks to a toggle in your iPhone settings. Remember, you should make a fresh backup of your iPhone and iPad. You may need to sign in with your Apple ID at beta.apple.com if you haven't done this before. Then you launch the settings app on your phone or iPad. Has to be running at least iOS 16.4. Then tap General, the software update. Choose the beta updates button. Now, then you tap the iOS 18 beta, public beta. And if you need to change your Apple ID associated with the beta, you can tap that button at the bottom, and then you choose back when done. You look for iOS 18 public beta to appear and choose download and install. Again, all this is on the site there at the bottom of the screen. If you've been following the news here over the weekend, you probably have heard about this already. A defective update to an obscure piece of security software knocked out computer systems around the globe Friday, causing widespread disruptions to travel, medical care, and businesses of all kinds. Airline passengers were stranded at airports as thousands of flights were canceled. Hospitals closed their doors to patients expecting routine appointments. Shoppers encountered self-checkout terminals showing the notorious blue screen of death that pops up when Windows fails. Even the organizers of the upcoming Paris Olympics reported impacts to the delivery of uniforms. The problem was traced to an update issued for Windows computers by security firm CrowdStrike. The company said at 6 a.m. on Friday the problem had been identified and fixed, but by that time the effects had rippled around the world.
And you said obscure in the beginning. Well, CrowdStrike is about the biggest, and in fact, half of the Fortune 1000 companies use CrowdStrike along with other people. So it is, and there's no excuse for this.
Yeah,
It's stupid. They should roll. I mean, it's common practice. You kind of like the public beta we just talked about is no, you roll it out to certain people and try it, and the problem is that the IT people didn't have control over it because CrowdStrike, which does a good job on Windows machines of blocking all this, it runs itself to do these updates where in fact, and I believe me, if you have stock in CrowdStrike, good luck for you because
ouch. Yeah,
this
took a hit.
this is, I mean, it was an unforced error and it had global implications. So the only thing is Southwest, it didn't affect them because as they found in the past, their outdated computer system came back to haunt them before. But no, it didn't affect them this time because they weren't on a new enough version of Windows.
Apparently Delta is still struggling.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, in a
What other weird thing is happening is a lot of luggage has gotten where it's supposed to be, even though the people didn't.
That's funny.
It is.
Yeah.
Unless it's you.
Right.
Well, moving on here. Apparently in a Twitter/X social network post, CrowdStrike President CEO George Kurtz delivered some news. He says that the Mac and Linux hosts are not impacted, although that won't help you too much if a service or an app you rely on happens to hook into a Microsoft server that is affected. Kurtz said that the issue is not a security incident or a cyber attack, just stupidity, I guess.
Well, but it does kind of highlight how easy it would be.
Oh yeah.
If it was a security thing, but I have to tell you that, and that's why CrowdStrike is to prevent this kind of thing. And it was just some bad code. And I think that guy probably doesn't have a job anymore. So
Apparently he's had some issues before and his
I don't mean him. I mean the coder, whoever it was that this code was bad. And then there just should have been checks and balances.
Yeah.
This is not.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on here, one of the most noteworthy events of the month, of course, is the 2024 Summer Olympic Games. They begin Wednesday, July 24th. I think they have a soccer game today. The ensuing 2.5 week stretch will be packed with the competitions, making one of the best events of all sports. The USA is going to send 592 participants to Paris, representing 46 states. Apple this week updated the Apple
And
Maps app.
one other Olympic thing, just so it was just announced today, and I'm very happy about it. The 2034, 10 years from now, Winter Olympics will return to Salt Lake City. And they did a
Nice.
fantastic job last time with it, and that was just announced today. And
Ah,
they're on an off 2-year cycle, so they
yeah,
used to always be in the same year, but now they're 2 years off from
I
this.
like it
So
like that. Yeah,
2034 Olympics will be in Salt Lake City,
in our
and
backyard.
it's killer for skiing, and they did a great job. And the best thing is they've kept their many of the venues, because usually Olympic venues go to rot afterwards because they're never really used after this. But the jumping hill and the toboggan things, they make those kind of tourist attractions, and they've kept them up and running, and so it made it easier to do it. So
Very good. Apple this week updated the Apple Maps app in Paris in preparation for the 2024 Summer Olympics. All the permanent venues are displayed as custom, hand-built 3D landmarks. For the first time, the Maps app is displaying pop-up locations that include temporary venues, souvenir shops, and public gathering sites. All the game locations and ceremony sites have special icons to help visitors find out where they need to be. And Apple says that Maps displays all the latest updates on road closures and advisories due to the games to help users navigate the city. There will be curated Maps guides for restaurants, hotels, and shopping. Along with the Maps updates, Apple plans to feature stories spotlighting popular events like gymnastics and swimming in the App Store. It recommends that people download the official Paris 2024 Olympics app to follow along. Sports-themed mobile games, health, and fitness apps will also be highlighted. Apple Podcasts will feature stories and episodes celebrating sports, while Apple News will have curated coverage of the events and the stars of the games, along with the schedule of events. Apple Music plans to publish a guide to French music, which is an in-depth editorial feature of all of the musical genres in France. It'll go live later this week. Now, if you're looking around for other streaming options, YouTube has a channel devoted exclusively to the Paris Olympics. It has many hours of backstories, video shorts of the Paris Olympic of the participants. It also has highlights and replays of previous Olympic Games. The 2024 Paris Olympic Games represents the 18th Olympic presentation by the NBC Universal as the U.S. broadcaster. That's the most by any media company. NBC Universal holds the media rights for the Olympic Games through 2032. By 2032, they will have covered 22 total Olympic Games since the first broadcast in the Summer Games in Tokyo in 1964. There are an assortment of iPhone and iPad apps on the App Store that will cover the Paris Olympic Games, including this one put out by the International Olympic Committee. If you're interested, here is a QR code for the app. And of course, it is free. Keeping on the topic of Apple Maps, here's something that Ken brought to my attention today. Apple is bringing Apple Maps to the web for the first time. In a press release today, the company announced that you can now access Apple Maps on the web using Safari and Chrome on a Mac or iPad, as well as Chrome and Edge on Windows PCs. Apple says Apple Maps on the web is currently a public beta. The web interface includes directions, businesses, points of interest, guides, and more. More features, including the popular look around feature, will be added in the coming months. Unfortunately, you currently cannot log in to your Apple ID on the web to access your saved places and custom guides. Anyone can try Apple Maps on the web in English by visiting beta.maps.apple.com. Apple says
And by the
support.
way, on the Mac, you do have Apple Maps is a separate app that's on there. So this is just letting you know if you were on a Windows machine or a Linux machine and you wanted to go to it via the browser. And I have to say, if you haven't used Apple Maps on the phone recently or the iPad or your Mac,
It's come a long way.
it has improved dramatically. And I mean, it was the redheaded stepchild for so long, but you know, they really have done a concerted effort, and especially some of the 3D things are just fantastic.
Apple says support for additional languages, browsers, and platforms will be expanded over time. So, on the topic of AI in the Olympics, I came across this article. In a groundbreaking initiative, the International Olympic Committee launched the Olympic AI agenda in April of 2024, setting out the envisioned impact that AI can deliver for sports in general. The Paris Games will witness the first examples of that implementation. Here's a link that outlines our focus areas and guiding principles. About 15 pages, quick read, but makes a lot of sense. For anyone interested in knowing more about Apple's 4M AI model, I came across this 5-minute YouTube video by Beta Technica. What makes the 4M AI model stand out, if you ask? The video discusses its unique features, including its ability to understand and predict user needs with accuracy. It also looks at the practical applications of this technology and how it can be integrated into everyday life, from personal assistants to smart home devices. Pretty good. It's just 5 minutes. Very good. As today's PSA, scams like phishing and social engineering are continuing to grow, with some specifically targeting Apple users. With that in mind, Apple shared a new support document with official tips on how to protect your Apple ID and other online accounts, how to spot and report scam emails, calls, and more. We all have to be vigilant and informed to be safe. And finally, tonight, chalk up another save for the Apple Watch. A quick-thinking Australian body surfer survived being swept out to sea after dialing emergency services on the life-saving digital device. 49-year-old gentleman named Rick Shearman told the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, it's, quote, "It's amazing that I was able to use that technology to save my own life," unquote. The Aussie had been partaking in morning body surfing session when he got caught in the impact zone. The impact zone is where the waves actually break. After taking a few hits to the head and being held underwater for a while, he started to panic a bit and cramp up. According to Sherman, he knew better than to fight the surf, since he had been in similar situations before. Instead, he allowed the current to tow him out beyond the breakers, whereupon he would look for a channel to make his way back to shore. Despite following the correct riptide protocol, the body surfer found himself stranded half a mile from the beach with no discernible route back in. That's when Sherman remembered he had his trusty Apple Watch. While treading water, he used a gadget to call emergency services. Quote, "At this point, I was a long way out to sea. I was being buffeted by wind and big swells. It was actually quite difficult to utilize the watch," Sherman recalled. He had to hold it up to his ear to hear what was going on and speak to the respondent. Despite being stranded at sea, the Aussie managed to stay online for an hour as he directed the responders to his location. Shortly thereafter, he was fished out by a helicopter and flown to safety. Rescuers claimed that if he hadn't been wearing his Apple Watch, the rescue would have taken days and involved multiple agencies due to the expansive search area. If it wouldn't have been, it would have also likely had taken a more tragic outcome. Call that another win for the Apple Watch.
So if you're not familiar, what a riptide is, and you can usually tell it, the water is usually frothy and stuff, but what a riptide is when certain currents of breaking waves come in, and then when they go back out to sea, they basically make it so everything is the current going out. And typical protocol is you try to swim one way or the other to get to an area where it's not a riptide and usually have what's called an eddy. But you know what, in many cases like that, it really has to do with the topography of the beach and how the waves break and stuff. But a riptide is you cannot swim against a riptide. It's
No.
almost as bad as the waves coming in when you're going the other way. I used to windsurf a lot in the surf, and you know, it was you wanted to be careful. So it's pretty amazing. And the watch. Now, what's interesting is the watch has a speaker, and he probably had a hard time too because the watch is waterproof and it's got a speaker. So there's actually a function on the watch that after you've been swimming, you burp the speaker because there can be a little bit of water built up in there. And the problem with the speaker is a speaker creates sound by movement, right? If you think about a speaker, it's movement of the airwaves. And if there's water in it, that's preventing the speaker from moving. So therefore, it's not very loud.
Yeah. Pretty, it's impressive that he was able to do that and that the watch worked as well as it did. He owes his life to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the links generated tonight and more will be distributed in a PDF by Bob White in his normal MacNexus email blast. I'll post it sooner on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is a great forum for late-breaking curated Apple tech news and support, and we encourage everyone to check it out.
Absolutely.
Back to you, Ken.
Well, thanks, Al. As usual, man, great job. Just that's a lot of work and great info. And I like I always say, I get all my updates. I see your posts on Facebook, and I don't have to go in and look at all the RSS feeds anymore. So if anybody has any questions on that for Al, go ahead. But otherwise, I'll move on to my keynote. And okay. All righty. So we've gone through most of this. Any other Q&A questions? If not, we can go on to the presentation. So I kind of a little bit different. The big thing is the main part of the presentation is going to be talking about my latest gadget. It's not an Apple device, but it works great on the Apple device, and we'll talk about it. It's an Insta360. Let me get the screen full page. There we go. All right. And then we'll have the raffle at the end. And I'm going to go through a few little catch-up things that have to do with photos and some of the stuff that I've been up to since I was gone. First, as always, please, 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 on your Mac, do Time Machine, and on your iOS devices, make sure you have iCloud backup going because you never know what's going to happen. And it would have been sacrilegious. This looks like an old Dell laptop, so don't worry. No Macs were killed when they did that photo thing. You know, we had a presentation from Pete a while back, the last time, and this is the link, the QR link to the Focus app that he did. That was a great seminar. So I'll have this up at the end again so you can do it. But I really think that was a fantastic presentation. So I recently was on the Great Race from Owensboro, Kentucky to Gardner, Maine, and this is our little car, and it was really cool because this guy in Maine sponsored a bunch of cars, and so everybody had these little lobsters in their goodie bags, and so we put a lobster there, and I love lobster, and I got my fill. This is our car right here, a 1953 MG, and we have special race seats, so we're very low because you always want your head to be below the roll bar, and so you can't really see our faces much. But I will point out right here, in fact, let me do this. Right here, I'm going to talk about this right here, this little clamp, because I had a camera in the car for part of the time, and it's the new camera here. So anyway, we did okay. We were 90th out of 140th. We had we broke down one morning and one afternoon. It's an old English car, and it happened, but we had a great time. The catch line in the great race is to finish is to win. So of course we won, but it was wonderful. We started out 90 plus degrees and 90 plus humidity in the first couple days. Then we had a little bit of a rainstorm, and then the weather got really good and had a great time. And we even went by, and I'm going to show you something from Seal Cove, their great car museum there. And it was my first time in Maine, so the nice thing is I touched a lot of different states. We didn't hit Vermont, and luckily I'd been to Vermont before. So my only two states left are North and South Dakota, and I'm going to probably do those in the fall. So in the fall or in the spring. So anyway, I will have hit all 50 states at that point. So in Maine, we went to Seal Cove, and we were lucky enough. One of the guys on the Great Race with us is part of this museum. And after the Great Race, we finished on Sunday, and on Tuesday he was back to the museum. He's the guy that he's retired and he fixes all these cars up. But you know how I am with electric cars, and they have quite a few old electric cars. And this is just an example. Yes, it's got newer batteries, but these were battery operated in 1911, and just amazing. And there was a Detroit Electric, which was the really popular one. And it was interesting because I remember years ago on one of the EV forums, I saw a map from the early 1900s, and it was where in Chicago the charging stations were for the cars. And most of these had about 60-mile range or something like that. And believe it or not, it was uh, electric almost won out, and we would have had electric cars instead of gas cars. But gas was really the thing, and it made it mobile. And battery technology wasn't there. But this is a fantastic museum. They have even some old motorcycles, and it's this small little town in the shores in Maine. And this doctor had a car collection, and they made it into a museum. And there are some very special cars. A 1903 Cadillac, a 1903 Oldsmobile, just amazing. So speaking of Maine, this was really cool. So when we get the Great Race directions, we don't get a map. We get a thing that says, at this stop sign, turn right, go 40 miles an hour for 6.6 minutes and 35 seconds, and then go this speed and all that. So you never know where you are. But whenever there's a toll, they tell us in the directions. So we knew that we were going to have a toll here at this gate, and it's $1.50, and it's cash only. And this is a little video from my new camera that I'm going to talk about. So here we go. So you'll notice the lady, the bridge tender, has a little stick on a cup. It's a metal stick with a metal cup, and you put your money in it. It's about as simple as you can get. So we come up, we had ours ready, and there you go. And the cool thing is, we're going across here, and you can see we've got headsets on because it's the only way we can communicate with each other. But this is an old wooden bridge. And you know, this is Maine. They have tough winters and everything. And you can see that's a beaver dam on the right there. It's all built up, and just a rural road.
Don't drop it.
Yeah, I know. And and our phones are supposed to be in the trunk, but we were already going to be out of this leg because we'd had a generator problem. So we were heading to just to get that to fix the car so we could use our phones at that point because we were out of the race for the remainder there because the what we thought was a generator problem. So anyway, this is the MG again. I just wanted to give you a little bit of the roads going around. Sorry about that. It's just beautiful. And this camera is incredible. This camera can do 360 degrees, but when you're in a car like this, what's behind you doesn't matter. And it will do 8K video. Now, these guys somehow made a wrong turn and they're having to make up time. So they had to pass us to make up time because they're going back to try get up to their spot because everybody starts a minute apart. And they were something like 10 cars ahead of us and they'd missed a turn. So they were making up time. So when the great race was over, it was great fun. We had lobster there at our banquet, and that oh man, I love lobster. So then we spent some time, and I'll show you pictures of Acadia National Park, which is in Maine. But then, and I've got these a little out of order, but we went to Boston, and I did tickets for the fireworks in Boston from the 52nd floor of the Prudential building. And this is the view from where I was eating this lobster roll. Is my last lobster roll of the trip and reasonably priced up there, believe it or not. And I'm looking at Fenway Park and you can see the Charles River on the right-hand side behind the Caesar salad there. So pretty amazing. And then we also did, when we were in Maine, we went around to the different coves and everything. And the lobster fishermen, these are the buoys that they have. So when they throw their lobster trap in the water, every fisherman has a different color combination for his buoy. And they respect it. Yeah, there's poachers that come along and stuff like that, but the lobster fishermen themselves respect it. And so if they lose one or something, they'll pull it up and they'll see who it is and get it back to them. And everybody's pretty good about that. But that gives you an idea of the different buoys they have. And so this is what would float. And then the lobster trap can be as much as 300 feet down. Acadia National Park. It's known for sunrise because it's the first spot in the continental US that gets sunrise. This was actually sunset. It's less known for it, but I'm using my iPhone to take a picture of my regular camera. And I had forgotten my tripod back in the hotel room. So I had scoped out this one little, it's like a tripod sign that they had with information on it. So I was able to put my jacket on it and then use that as a tripod for my camera. And it was sunset. And then it's really hard. This is up on the top of Cadillac Mountain. And they limit you have to do reservations to get up Cadillac Mountain. And then the sunrise for Cadillac Mountain is very tough to get reservation for. But luckily enough, we were able to get sunrise on Cadillac Mountain the next day. And, we had to leave at about 3:30 in the morning because sunrise was at like 4 or something. And this is looking actually, the other one is looking towards Nova Scotia. So this is sunrise on Cadillac Mountain in Acadia National Park. And Acadia National Park is wonderful. And you can see all these inlets. And actually back to this one, Bar Harbor is down here in this area over here. So that's Bar Harbor, Maine. So a great park. I always talk about Guide Along. The old Gypsy Guide is now Guide Along. and we used that for the park also. Just some of the neat little ports as we go along there. I thought this was a great iPhone photo. The cannons with the four-masted schooner there, which is pretty special. So,
Ken, just wanted to mention you're mispronouncing that town. It's Bahaba.
Bahaba, Bahaba, and you park the car. So yeah, thank you for that. I kind of didn't. Yeah. This is the most photographed bridge in New England, and it's just you're going along the little highway, and there's just it's just wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Time of year was good. The weather was great. Uh, Boston was 80 degrees. I got home from Boston, and the next day it was 116 degrees on my patio. So um, quite a juxtaposition, but just wonderful. Um, Al, now this is Al will have links for this. Whenever I travel, I have this little bellows type thing that I put on my iPhone because when you take pictures in a plane, in a hotel room, in a bus, you get the reflection off of the window. So what this does is it takes it for the iPhone. I can rest it up against the window, and it does a pretty good job with the reflection. And the only problem is sometimes with dual pane glass, it will reflect off the second glass. But this little device is like $20. I travel with it all the time. You can obviously mount it on a tripod, but I pretty much hand hold it. In fact, when I was at uh, where I was taking the fireworks pictures, I had my iPhone just up on a paper cup to hold it. And so I really encourage this, and Al will have links for that. So in the chat that goes. Now, next is these are iPhone shots of the fireworks from the 50th floor of the Prudential building, and it's called View Boston. And those are from the iPhone. And a little trivia is in 1777, so 1 year, the very first Independence Day, in Philadelphia, 13 cannons were their fireworks. And Boston itself, of course, home of the Boston Tea Party that started it all, is where the very first fireworks went off. And so I think the 250th anniversary is coming up in a couple of years. So it's my first time in Boston, had a great time. Wish I could have spent more time. I really encourage, there's a hop on, hop off bus. It's a wonderful tour there. This is taken with my big camera, and I have a big bellows for it. But what's funny is this room we were in, we couldn't get the lights to go down enough. And so we're getting reflection. So I, early in the night, had seen this black tablecloth, and I knew that I was going to have to block some of the light from behind me. And we got it down quite a bit. But I took that tablecloth, and if you remember the old photos where the photographer would get under a cape basically and take photos that way, I had my Insta360, my iPhone, and my Sony camera set up, and then I pulled this cape up over me to basically seal me. It was a black tablecloth so that I didn't get any reflection off of the double pane window and stuff. So always be thinking about stuff like this. And this was taken with my Sony camera. So this is a video with the Insta360, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. Now it's a big wide angle camera. If I zoom in more, it's not as good. I mean, it loses it, but this was running the entire time while I was doing the other photos. So pretty cool. That's the Charles River. And there get some pretty good ones coming up, and a big old flash. We were behind glass, so we didn't have a lot of good sound. That's my other camera, sorry. Anyway, so what I did that with is this thing called an Insta360. And I want to talk about it a bit because I think there are so many applications for this and what it is. So everybody knows about GoPros. GoPros have some issues with heating up and things like that. And they can do a 360 now. But I researched it a lot and I really wanted to capture, like you saw earlier, us in the car. So I have a lot of clips from us going along in the car with this just mounted to the roll bar. And then because I can't use the iPhone, I can use nothing digital while I'm in the car. But I have a remote control for this camera that did not have a clock on it. So I was able to control this camera. And I mean, I'm doing my navigation and everything else, and I'm busy while I'm doing it. But I was able to toggle it on and off so it didn't run for the whole time because gosh, you've got an 8 hour video. Who's going to go back and edit that? But this Insta360 just did an incredible job, and I'll bring up the remote later for you. But it's just what an incredible device, and they have different models of them. I chose to get the X4, which is their newest and the latest and the greatest. Now, if you'll notice in this picture, you see the guy in the white t-shirt, and you'll notice he's got something in his hand, which actually is what they call a selfie stick. And believe me, I hate selfies and I hate selfie sticks. But in this case, it's a little different because you mount it to the bottom of the camera, and that's how you hold it up. So you get what look like drone shots. And in fact, they make one that's 10 feet long and it looks like a real drone shot. But in the software, it completely erases the selfie stick. So it's invisible. They call it an invisible selfie stick. And you don't have to use the one from Insta360. Any black stick will become invisible. And it's really, really neat. And the software, so believe it or not, it's got a camera in front and a camera in back, and it will completely do 360. So if you do a still shot and you post it, you can actually move your mouse around and completely look around in 360, or it's doing video 360 up to 8K resolution, and it's phenomenal. So a couple other features here. This is a video about it. I have a 2 minute and a 3 minute video that are pretty instructive. And '72 megapixel photos.
Hey, Ken, does that remote work on the version 3?
I think they have a different remote, and I'll look at that in a second. So a lot of those things are not our demographic, but think of time-lapse photography, think of star photography, think of just like, for instance, when I was in Boston, I was on the hop on, hop off bus. So I predominantly use the camera with just the front lens, and the front lens spans 180 degrees. But I just going along in the hop on, hop off bus, and I held it up while I'm using my iPhone to take other pictures. I had used the selfie stick and I pushed my leg against it against the side of the bus, and it was doing video when I went along. And I do have a remote, which I'll bring up at the end of this next video and show you. Um, and there's just so many implications, but it's also a really good still camera. The only downside is it's a super wide angle lens, so it's not like you're going to zoom in and see shots of other things. This is more an action cam, and you can consolidate it down a little bit. But even just walking around a town, recording those memories, the darn thing is so small. It's half the width of an iPhone. It's a little bit twice as thick of an iPhone, but it can go in your pocket as easy as an iPhone. So unless there was something else, I'm gonna go one more video to show you some kind of interesting things it'll do, and then we'll talk about it a little more. Oh, actually, before I get to that video, so look at this. You go out paddle boarding, and you can put a suction mount on there, or you can, if you're just doing bicycling, regular old bicycling on the bike trail or something, you can have one that you put it on your helmet. You can hook it to a backpack strap, or if you have a camelback, and just have it video like that. You can use hand gestures to start and stop the video, or you can use voice, or you can use the Apple Watch or the iPhone, or they even make a remote, which I will talk about in a second. For $99. Now, if anybody's ever looked at underwater photography, first of all, it's completely waterproof down to 33 feet. Beyond that, you can put it in this $99 waterproof case, and you're getting a full 360-degree with it. And then it's got enough positive buoyancy that it would float to the top. And of course, you have a wristband on it there. This is very similar to what I did. I took the clamp I showed you earlier on the roll bar, and when I was in the rental car going around, I didn't have a suction cup mount like this at the time. I do now, but I just clamped it to the base of the windshield wiper where it meets the hood there, and I had it hooked on that, and then I used the remote to turn it on and off. So this is a good example. So you see the guy has his hand out like this, but when it gets processed in there, it completely misses that selfie stick. So it's really, and the quality is phenomenal. This would be where the stick is missing from this, but it's actually funny because this was a made up shot, I can tell, because normally, while the selfie stick becomes invisible, the shadow of the selfie stick will show up. Here's a good example. So in this video, this selfie stick here will be invisible, but the shadow will still show up. Oh, and what's interesting, see, this guy has two of them, it looks like. So this is shot from the second one, and you can see its selfie stick is not showing up. That would be this one. But this selfie stick is showing up because that's on the other camera. So it senses the selfie stick. In other words, it knows it's straight down the camera. But it kind of gives you a drone type look, and you can extend it up farther. And obviously, like in the car, we had it on the roll bar, so it would have been able to do a full 360. The 360s can look like this. Now, this is going to show some very interesting effects. And this is just slightly over a 2-minute video. Those are kind of weird. So that's the 10-foot stick, and you can see it really gives a different perspective. It looks like a drone shot. Time lapses are very cool. So, a lot of those effects, I really don't see people using them, but when I travel, I go to the central markets all the time, and just walking along in there and just carrying it, you can have it mounted on your chest or something. And again, I think the 360 is not, while it's incredible for that, it's got its own things. But to just go along and have this be a travel camera, because the fact that it can do the full 180 degrees, and I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. Um, it and its quality is just phenomenal. So the battery lasts quite a while. It's over 2 hours on the battery. And what I did is, in the car, I would change the battery when we broke for lunch. So I made sure I had an extra battery with me. And by the way, it charges, you can charge the battery separately, but it's simply a USB-C charger. And then you can get the video up to your iPhone or your iPad or your laptop or your iMac via Wi-Fi or with the USB-C cable. I have this one. I'm going to show you the last video here, and it's fairly short. It's only a minute. The big boy train that just came through town, I went up to Gold Run and I wanted to capture it. And so here was what my rig was set up. I have one tripod with a bar on it. And so I have my Sony camera right here with my long lens so I can get the train when it comes around the corner. I have my iPhone right here because I always know I get good photos with my iPhone. And then I have the Insta360 here. And actually, after I took this picture, I changed it slightly. I turned the 360 because I was going to get the train coming and going. And I figured, you know what, it's better off. So I actually pointed it exactly 90 degrees from that because I knew I would get it coming and get it going. So this is set up, isn't it? I turned the camera, but everything else was still facing this way. And this is my shot from actually, I think this was the iPhone shot of the train, the big boy train coming. But this is the video from the train, and the train will be coming in here. And this is the full 180 degrees that you get of it. 1 minute long. Train's about to round the bend. You hear the rumble of the locomotive there.
It's silent for.
What's that?
It's silent at my machine.
You're not hearing anything?
No, seeing it just fine, just not hearing it.
Al, are you hearing it? Did the earlier videos play?
They were silent.
We are not hearing anything,
I haven't
Oh,
heard
well-
any.
the videos.
Oh, good. We'll have to go through all that again. No. Oh man, that sucks. Okay, well,
The video
I
footage is
played
still
it,
compelling. It's a pretty impressive device. I have the
Yeah.
three. Yeah.
I
So-
played the copy you posted the other day. The sound is really good.
yeah, on that train it is. So, well, that's weird. I wonder if it'll show. It probably won't even show up in the YouTube video. Let's see here.
The train was probably about 3 hours late by the time we got to Gold Run, wasn't it?
Yeah, the train was. I was at Magra Road there, and the train was 3 hours late because it hit a tree that fell down. So what I want to show you is a couple of the accessories, and Al has links to these. So, Al, you talked about the remote. Now, this is pretty interesting. So, because I couldn't have any digital devices out, this qualified because it's not really a clock. This shows me how much time is left on the camera. It logs the GPS and it gives me a preview of what the camera is doing. And I can start and stop it and turn the camera off and on from this remote. This remote's not cheap, but it was the only way I could do it because I couldn't use my iPhone or my Apple Watch. And I could have done it direct from the camera, but I'm so busy when I'm doing this other stuff, there was no way. So it comes with a wristwatch strap, and it's silicon, and so you can put it in that, or there's a smaller band that goes around the thing. And so what I did the smaller band instead of my wrist, and I was able to access it while I was doing it. So that's the remote that does the GPS, and you'd have to check here. It looks like it may only be X4, but
Yeah.
they
At
do
the
have a
top.
GPS remote that I think works on the X3. So you'd have to check on that. So some of the other things, well, that's the camera. So basically the base camera is $499. And then I really encourage these. They make two different types of the screen protectors. They just twist on, and you want to have that. And then I also got this silicon lens protector. And you want to have I was surprised. It's not too big of a card on it, but I got this kit because I got an extra battery and the other stuff. And you can use the regular GoPro mounts on the bottom, or you can use the regular quarter 20 that's the for camera stuff.
Did you get
This
a
is the
cage for it?
I'm sorry?
Did you get a cage for it?
Yeah, I got a cage for it. And especially my cage has a cold shoe on it,
Yeah.
and
multiple.
I can do horizontal.
Yeah.
Because you want to do horizontal if it's like on your helmet or something like that, because otherwise it's cumbersome. This is the clamp, And this works to clamp it to the roll bar in the car. It could be a pole, it could be a railing, anything like that. The other thing is a suction mount, and that would work on windows and things. If you're going to do this externally, though, I would encourage you to get some sort of tether, but make sure you get a good version with a really good suction cup on there. Extra battery is 45 bucks. There are aftermarket ones too. I just went with that.
I got an aftermarket one because uh when I use theirs, you actually have to take it out of the cage in order to change the batteries. The
So
third party, the
I
third
made
party.
sure. Yeah, I got a cage. I specifically got a cage that has it where I can remove the battery. There's certain cages that are like that. So I like small rig for cages, but I'm not sure if theirs covers the battery or not. So plus it's this section here is beefy enough to handle a DSL or a mirrorless. So, but that's the Insta360. You can get lots of different accessories. Oh, let's see, nothing else here. Yeah. Anyway, any questions on the Insta360? And maybe if you win the raffle, that's partway to the Insta360. So again, don't forget I have the mount for the or the lens hood thing for the iPhone that was really good. I like this. And it's adjustable. It shows it here with an Android, but or actually, it could be an iPhone 10 or something like that.
So Ken, is it a neutral density filter? Is that what it is?
No, this is not a filter at all. This is a rubber hood, so you're not getting reflection. They do make some of these where you can integrate a filter with it if you want. Like for instance, for the Eclipse, I got one that goes over your phone and I could do a neutral density. In fact, I did a 10 stop one so I could do pictures, but this is no filter or anything. It's completely open. But the idea is you rested the perimeter against the glass. And let me see if I can show a better shot. See, that shows you here where you put it up against the glass and it isn't in your phone. And then the other thing is sometimes you may have to angle it. But I use that on buses when I'm traveling. I got a great shot of Mount Fuji when I was taking off from the airport in Japan. So, all right. Any other questions before we get to the raffle? Anybody? Don't see any. Hopefully there weren't any in the chat, right? Okay, it's time for the raffle. So we always raffle off 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. And we do to them, and that's and 2 $100 Amazon gift cards to attendees at the meeting. And then we do a special raffle after that that includes the entire membership. And if you win something in the regular raffle, if you win 2 things, you have to give 1 back and we'll re-raffle it. But if you win something in the first raffle and then you win it in the all member raffle, you get both. And they are different numbers because one is just the attendees and one is the entire membership. And if I can get both of those numbers from the total numbers from Lisa and from Mary.
For the attendees tonight, it's 31.
31, we'll do a random number generator. And
for the all members, it's 245.
245. Okay, and that'll be the last drawing. So I will bring up Siri and I'm going to do a test and you guys tell me if you can hear Siri since we weren't hearing stuff earlier. What time is it?
It's 8:54 p.m.
Were you guys able to hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so we're going to do the $25 drawings for 1 through 31. We know it's inclusive. So give me a random number between 1 and 31.
The answer is 3.
3.
Barbara Badeau.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Barbara.
I hope I said
Thanks.
your name right, Barbara.
That's fine.
All righty, so our second $25 gift card. Give me a random number between 1 and 31.
It's 13.
13.
Dennis Irwin.
Congratulations.
Yahoo! Thank you.
Good job. Give me a random number between 1 and 31.
The answer is 5.
5.
Bev Lawrence.
Congratulations, Bev. Give me a random number between 1 and 31.
It's 25.
25.
I would like confirmation, Lisa, if you've got them.
I've got it. I've got it.
It's me.
Congratulations, Barry.
Finally.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to move on to the two $100 gift cards. It's the same numbers as before. Give me a random number between 1 and 31.
The answer is 14.
14.
Don McBride.
Hey, Don, congratulations. All right. Give me a random number between 1 and 31.
It's 29.
Rich Pearson.
Rich Pearson. Hey, they're on my screen. They're both right above each, right? One's on
Thanks
top.
a lot.
That's
That's
good.
great.
Okay, now we will do the one that goes out. And by the way, you guys that won will all get an email from me this evening, and it's not spam. It'll come from Amazon, so you can do it. So the next one is we're going to do 1 through 245 for the entire membership, and it's a different set of numbers. And I think Lisa has these, right?
Yes, I do.
Great. Give me a random number between 1 and 245.
The answer is 195.
All right,
Oh.
way up the list.
Gotta go down here. 195 is Jeannie Campbell.
Jeannie Campbell, congratulations. I don't know that she's on tonight. So thanks to all our volunteers, Al with his great work, Bob that gets the email out all the time, Lisa, our treasurer, she does a great job, Mary and Randy, Bob Ress, our secretary, and Rich Pearson. So, and I already
Randy.
said Al. So thank you very much. And you know what I'm thinking, by the way, the Tesla EV people, what we might do is do a quick little talk about on Saturday's class, maybe for 15 minutes if people are in attendance, but otherwise I'll email everybody about that. So if anybody didn't hear earlier, we're spinning off kind of a special interest group about electric vehicles, and it'll be a Zoom thing. It's not tied to MacNexus at all, but we have quite a few people in MacNexus that have electric cars. And if you have any interest in it, it'll just be kind of a tech thing, kind of like this. And Lisa, myself, Bev will be involved, anybody else. So we'll go forward with that, and we'll probably do a precursor one there. And if not, what I would recommend is if you're interested in joining that, we'll use a different link. I'll use for the time being, my personal link, and for Zoom, and send an email to macnexusinfo@gmail.com, but put in the subject line EV, And that way Bob will forward that to me, and then I'll distribute that out to everybody, and we'll go from there. So before we close down, and man, we're like exactly right on time. So any other questions, I'm happy to answer if anybody has any questions on anything we discussed, or why is the sky blue, or anything else like that. And why is it so darn hot? You know, that might be one. So anybody? No?
Ken.
Thanks.
Got to see it finally after talking about it with you.
What's that?
Got to see it finally after talking about it with you.
What was that?
Your car. Good to see you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I have one, Ken. I had to buy a new printer, and I was just wondering, or I thought I did, is an Epson okay? Do they go okay with the Macs?
yes.
I just picked them up at,
Yeah. Did you already buy it and already install?
Yeah, but I haven't set it up yet.
Okay, so here's my deal on printers. You know, printers for the longest time have been inexpensive to buy, but expensive to fill. And when I look at a printer, I think the most important thing is, what is the price of the consumables? It's kind of like the razor blade thing. You know, they give you the razor and the first 3 blades really cheap to get you into it. And then they only sell the blades like that. It's kind of like Keurig with K-cups. It's kind of all of that stuff. So there are printers now that cost a little bit more, but they have bigger ink tanks, and they're actually tanks instead of those little ones like that. So I think it's most important that you look at consumables and see how much the consumables might be for you, because that's the most important thing. And you know, sometimes it's the old pay me now or pay me later kind of thing. And sometimes depending on your printing, I have to say, and I pushed this long ago in MacNexus classes, is I'm really lucky because I have a couple of the old brothers that use generic ink cartridges with impunity, and I still have some cartridges that I paid 85 cents for. I think the cartridges are up to $2 each or $2.50 now, but I have enough leftover cartridges. And I like the brothers because their ink is fairly thin so that it doesn't glob up. But even Brother has gotten smart, and they're charging that ink model. But a couple exceptions to that, again, are the tanks. Some of them are called Eco Tank or whatever. And basically you get a year's worth of ink when you buy the printer, and then the subsequent ink isn't that much. HP has a unique program, and they have a thing where you can pay per month for however many pages you print. And if I'm not mistaken, I may be dated on this, but I think it's $2.99 a month, and you get to print up to 50 pages, and they'll roll over if you don't print 50 pages.
I think the base one went up to $3.99 now.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
So a year or two back.
And it's called Instant Ink. And I'm not a big fan of HP printers, to be honest. They seem to be the ones I have the most trouble with Wi-Fi. And I hate that because our great friend and teacher Pete doesn't work directly for HP, but he works with them, and it's sad. But their ink is pretty expensive, but everybody's is too. Now the deal is on printers, typical office jet printers cost less for the ink, and they print photos just okay. I mean, you don't print them great. They're not going to be where you do it. But if you decide to get a photo printer, and most brands have photo printers and regular color inkjet printers. And the color inkjets, or the photo printers, have more expensive ink, but it's archival quality. So the ink doesn't fade over time. It's where you can do it. But to be honest, unless you're printing a lot of photos, it's cheaper to go have Walgreens or one of those places print them for you, and you can simply email them or upload them to it, than it is to have a photo printer, but but it's the photo printers are really good, and those are actually inkjet printers that you get. Now, the least expensive printer is a black and white laser, and you can get generic cartridges for those most places. The Brother makes a good one. That's where HP still makes a good one. I have an old Workhorse that's been here forever. But color lasers, on the other hand, the consumables are very expensive on a color laser. And a color laser does not do photos well. It does charts and graphics very well, but it doesn't do photos as well as a good photo printer. Okay. So that's kind of the thing, but shop around, see what it's like. It's and again, what I would do is, like, for instance, if you go to Amazon and look for a specific printer, I'm not saying you should buy it from Amazon because Costco has good deals and everything. But what you do is if you go look at that printer in Amazon, you can instantly see what the consumables are. And what it is many inkjet printers make it very difficult for you to use aftermarket ink, whether they're refillable or not, because they have computer chips in those to specifically make it so you can't use it. There's ways around it, and some of those things work, but all it takes is a firmware update from the printer company and they could make it so that stops working. So do your homework on it, look at reviews on Amazon, and then go from there, because consumables are the big deal.
And Ken, did you, I got this one at Costco. I just wanted to verify it is an Epson. I was kind of in a bind, I thought, and I needed to get a printer. So it looked like the stars at Costco were fine, but I didn't see they had the ink refills, just FYI. So if anybody, I mean, it was about $200. So I'm thinking it's a decent.
Well, does it have the word tank on it?
Yeah, I think it's got the tanks.
So the way that works is, and that's what high-end printers like that Walgreens and those places use, is basically the old ones would have these small cartridges and they're super expensive. And sometimes they had the print head and sometimes they didn't. But the idea is that you're essentially buying the ink in bulk when you get a tank type printer. And so therefore that's why they charge more. The old business model was, we're taking a loss selling you the printer. We're going to make up for that by selling you the consumable. It's the same thing like I talked about the Apple Watch. If you buy the cellular contract, you're going to get a deal because you're paying for that watch in 2 years worth of service. So, and so therefore the tank printers are not going to be as inexpensive. And the other thing is, most inkjet printers of the non-tank variety, the old school ones, they actually even come with a sample cartridge that is not a full cartridge. So you're immediately going to have to go out and buy ink right away.
That's why I chose to not get another HP. I decided to go with the little.
Oh, they're not the only ones. And I mean, Epson was so bad, I don't know if they still do it, that if you are low on ink, you can't even scan, which makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, it is unfathomable what they do. It's not customer service. I don't know if they're still doing that. I think Canon is a pretty good player in the game. I like Brother. Brothers are not known for their photo printers though, but for their regular printers, they've been pretty good. And their actual cartridges, their branded cartridges are not that expensive. So go through, look at consumables, and think about that. The other thing is, if you have an inkjet printer, never turn it off. Leave it plugged in all the time. And the reason you want to do that is because the ink needs to cycle every so often, because it will get clogged up. And if it gets clogged up, all of a sudden that very expensive cartridge isn't any good anymore, and you're going to have to replace it and then do a cleaning. So, leave it on. And if you have a power outage, you may have to go in and turn it on again anyway. And it uses less energy when it's on and asleep. It uses less energy than a nightlight, but you want it to cycle every so often. The problem people run into is, like, for instance, when my parents used to go down to Arizona for 3 months, they had a printer there and a printer here, and the printer down there would be not doing anything for 8 months or 9 months. And so it would always kind of be clogged up.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
Ken, I was in the store the other day and I noticed that HP's introduced a tank printer now. I don't know if you know that or not.
No, I didn't know that. And
It's the smaller one's 179 and the larger one's 349, and the ink refills are about 70, I think, 70, 75.
for all
It's
of
not
them,
too bad.
individual one on the printer refill.
Well, no, no, I can't see what it says now.
But that's good. And I mean, it may be good. I mean, HP. So while Epson was always very stringent about the cartridges, HP is too, but HP was very expensive for their ink. And so the fact that they're doing a tank now, and again, with those prices, that's kind of the going rate. I mean, if you figure around $200 is what you pay for a tank type printer. The other thing is, because printers can fail, I'm not a big fan of extended warranties, but Costco has a pretty good return policy. And the other thing is, buy it with a credit card that may have extended warranty with it and stuff. So,
Oh, that would have been, I used a gift card. Good point, though.
yeah, well, but you got it at Costco, you said, right?
Yeah, but and I thought it was interesting they didn't have the ink, the cartridges, or the bottles or whatever. So I'll look into that before. What happened is my power went off and I couldn't even turn my HP on. And it turned out that I finally went, unplug it and plug it back in, and it does work. But
Sometimes
I decided to keep the new one, probably because this is like 9 years old.
Well, but the other thing is, if you have extra cartridges for your existing one, I mean, because that's the most expensive part about the printer is the cartridge. So
anyway, okay.
It's like these people go to they get the tank ones and they go, well, should I give this printer to somebody else? Oh yeah, you want to make them go poor. So anyway, that's good. And Barbara, thanks for that info. I wasn't aware of it, and
yeah, the one that's the smaller one is once I figured it'd be 250, including the extra package of ink. It does come with ink, like you said, but the guy told me it was a smaller supply of ink. But I can see there's a sign. I took a picture of it. There's a sign on it that says 2 years of ink included.
Yeah,
and they market too.
Look, and again, what my recommendation is go immediately to Amazon, and first and foremost, look at the branded ink for that one, and you'll get an idea. It will give you page count and like how many pages you expect out of it, which is really a pretty decent barometer, and they figure it out. But many times you'll have a regular cartridge and an extra large. They're the same size, just one has more ink in it. And with the tank, it might be the same thing too. And so you can amortize that out depending, we all print a bunch around tax time, but then you got to kind of figure out what your usage is. And and by the way, I'm a stickler with paper, and Costco has, I always like 24-pound paper because most paper is 20-pound and it's really thin and you see through it and stuff. Costco has the 500-page reams of really good, bright 24-pound paper, and I always get that paper. And it just, it's pennies more on the whole ream, but it's really nice paper and it really makes it better.
Good points.
And by the way, you don't have to get it. And these days, anything is inkjet paper now. You don't really have to get, even though in the old days you'd have to get inkjet. The only thing that you do if you're going to print photos is you want to get photo paper. But again, a regular inkjet printer prints okay photos, but photo printers print really nice photos, but it's expensive ink and it's archival and all that. And I have to say, I think the leader in that is Canon and Epson, if I'm not mistaken, on the photo printers, but I'm not up to speed on that. That was just my thoughts. Good question.
Well, thanks for the info. Before I really totally unpack it, I will check out all of that stuff. And it sounds like, Barbara, you're right in the process as well.
Well, mine's, I think, 7 years old, and it still works okay, but I'm
Yeah.
just kind of always keeping my eyes open.
Well,
Yeah.
so my thought on that is if your printer still works and it's old, when it's time to get new ink, if the ink's expensive, that's when you look at, oh, is it time to change or not?
Yeah.
Just like I would say, if you're thinking about changing cell phone carriers, wait till the new phone comes out because you're going to get a deal on. Same thing with yours. It's like, adding ink to an old printer when maybe the ink on the new one is less money. So you got to balance it. Consumables is what should drive the price for you.
Got it.
Can I comment on this topic? This is Joellen. I'm sorry I don't have my video up yet.
That's
Can you
okay.
hear
Go
me?
right ahead.
Yeah, two things. One, years ago, I bought a color laser printer and was horrified that the replaceable, the ink for that cost $750 to replace all of the ink cartridges.
What was that in?
It was a Brother laser printer, color.
Oh, color laser. Oh, yeah.
Yes, it was beautiful. It was beautiful quality, but I couldn't afford that, so I had to just trash it. And then the other thing is, I currently have a Brother laser printer that is an incredible workhorse. And I think I've only replaced the cartridge in that once, and I've had it, 10 years at least.
And that's a black and white.
That's right. And I absolutely love it.
It'll either say mono or black and white, and they're great. And I have to say, HP's lasers are still very good. But yeah, the Brother is the one you can get on a good deal. And you get aftermarket cartridges. There's a place called Laser Monks, and they do laser filling, and then you can get them. And then the trick on lasers is you take the cartridge when it starts to get a little faint. Take the cartridge
you shake
out,
it.
shake it around. You'll get another 1,000 pages out of the things.
Yeah. It's just a great printer.
It's funny. I remember in the old days. So I was always talking about this Brother printer that the ink cartridges were 85 cents each for aftermarket. And I'd really push that. And I remember at Fireside Room up there, and somebody says, well, I hear those aftermarket cartridges, you got to be careful with them. And I looked and I said, well, they're 85 cents each. And you can take them to Staples and you turn them in and get a $2 credit. So if your 85-cent cartridge messes up, you're gaining $1.15, and you've now become an ink launderer. And it kind of put it all in perspective. Now, obviously, they don't do that anymore, but it was, yeah. So, but I have a backup one of these printers if mine ever fails, because I love being able to just print, and the paper is the only thing that costs me. So
and what kind of printer do you have? I missed that.
I have an old Brother that uses the 71. It's a Brother inkjet, and the 485 or something. So
do you ever have to replace the drum, or does that model not have a printer
no,
drum?
inkjets don't have drums. This is inkjet, not laser. The laser I have is the HP 1320, which is a workhorse, it's got to be getting close. It's got to be 20 years old. And I don't use it. I rarely use it anymore because the consumable on it, even though it's cheap, it's still less on my color laser or my color inkjet. So anyway,
it is 20 years old. Because the 1320s came out just after I retired 22 years ago.
Yeah. So the thing is that every time we get an update on the OS, I go, please still work. And in fact, it's USB. It's I had a network thing for it, but I have it USB, so it doesn't work on my network for the laser. The brother does. The brother's wireless, and my brother supports AirPrint, which is great.
Yeah. Back in the day, I used to tell MacNexus members, if they were going laser, get a brother, because at the time, brother was always right on the stick, updating their drivers when a new OS came out. And then Apple took over doing the drivers themselves.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't no longer an issue.
Bev, you got a question? Go for it.
Well, not so much a question, just on the printers. I bought a used laser color printer from this refill place on Arden Way, and it's a tank of a machine. He supposedly can refill the containers, and he said the old office ones are better than the smaller home ones because they're bigger tanks, last longer.
And they also will heat up your room for you.
Huh?
They'll heat up your room for you. No, they do. They run warm. But yeah, the office ones.
Oh yeah.
But if he can refill them, yeah, that's a big deal, because color consumables on lasers it's you think everybody thinks that inkjet is expensive. Man. I still have them. I have two Samsung ones that had the black and then 3 colors on a laser. And I used it, and there was such a deal on it. It was cheaper to buy a second one than to buy the consumables. So I bought the second one to have enough consumables for it. But then I really hardly ever used the thing. So anyway, they look really good when they come out, but anyway. All right. Any other questions?
Well, just a comment, and if Mary, when you're setting up, or anyone that has issues, View Scan is still in business there, and View Scan, for anybody that needs a driver for an older printer, they're still in business. I paid a one-time fee years and years ago, and I still get updates. I don't need them; it works without it, but it's
View Scan.
I second that for Randy. Yeah,
it's VUE Scan,
right?
Not VIEW. VUE Scan. Very, very good. And luckily, there's most drivers. But the other thing you got to be careful of too is you get a new Mac sometimes, or you get a new operating system. At some point, your old one may stop scanning. And I've found some ways around on most of them. But yeah, if you have to, View Scan is very much worth it. So.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Mary and Lisa. I have the email, and I will get my Amazon cards out for them. So.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody. Take care. Have a
See you
good evening.
later.
Stay cool.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.